How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez, Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is November 22nd, 2018, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We got a lot to get into here today, so let's get going. Everyone's asking, All Elite Wrestling, what's the story?
You asked me. I mean,
you've written all about it today.
I've written some stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's you know the situation. Until they have a TV deal, it's an idea. If they get a TV deal, it could be big, just like everybody else. If there's a TV deal, there could be big. The key thing with the trademarks that they filed for is that it's pretty clear that this is the company that Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks, are earmarked for, because some of the stuff, the Double or Nothing, I think, is the key one. Double or Nothing was the name that they wanted to use for the second All In show. And these guys are trademarking Double or Nothing, so it's got to be with their blessing, which tells you that they're in. So the guy behind it is Tony Khan, who is the son of Shahid Khan, and he's a longtime wrestling fan. He's subscribed to The Observer since he was probably, 14 years old. It's been 20 years plus, and he's 36, so I couldn't tell you the exact year he started, but it's been a long, long time. And he was a correspondent years ago, and he's, he heads analytics for, he has a company that does analytics for a lot of Major League Baseball teams, actually more than half of the Major League Baseball teams, and he's involved with the, his father owns the Jacksonville Jaguars and Fulham, FC of the English Premier League, and he works for both. He's the general manager of the Fulham team. He does analytics and a lot more with the Jacksonville Jaguars, senior vice president of football technology and analytics for the Jaguars for the last 6.5 years. And he runs a couple of other companies, True Media Networks, an engineering firm specializing in sports analytics for franchise and media partners. He's got interest in a entertainment company for artists in music, film, and TV, the artists, films, and TV industries. And so that's that's his key background. And, the whole thing now is, again, what I can tell you is that the deal, without the Young Bucks, this deal is not going to exist. So if WWE gets the Young Bucks, or Ring of Honor, Sinclair decides we're gonna make a big offer and keep them, and we're gonna try to fight Vince, or we're gonna try to challenge Vince, who knows? There's no contract signed with anybody, nor can there be right now, because these guys are under contract till the end of the year. Cody and Brandy Rhodes are the only ones who negotiate with them, because they are not under contract to anybody right now. And Chris Jericho. The reports of Jericho, this being like a Jericho and Jim Ross thing, have always been, I won't say, those were inaccurate stories, or Barry Bloom or whatever. Those were inaccurate stories. Those guys, it's entirely possible. Ross would, at the earliest, could come along in April, given that he works for WWE. But there's no guarantees of that at all. And with Jericho's a free agent, and obviously knows about all this. But, Jericho, the thing with Jericho, he was always, when he went to Japan, the one thing people have to understand is when he went to New Japan, the idea was that he would get out of WWE. He thought it was time to get out of WWE. It would get him out of WWE. It would keep him alive with the wrestling audience, and it would make him a larger character, because he would perform sporadically in Japan in high-profile matches that people would see. And then when he would go back to WWE, he would be a bigger star than when he left. That was always his idea. Now, things changed since then. And, before, he had always said he would never work in the United States against, with anyone but WWE. And even before that, he had said he would never work in pro wrestling with anyone but WWE. And times changed. And as far as, you know, but at the same time, you know, he could easily go back to WWE. The thing, and I would think that he would, but the one thing that makes this a little bit different, this scenario different, is the cruises. You know, he wants to do the annual cruise. WWE is pretty much, they turned him down the first time. Now, that doesn't mean they'll always turn him down, but they turned him down the first time. And there's a question if they would want to be involved so strongly, but maybe they would, you know. But if they don't want to be involved, then it's to his benefit to, if the cruise thing is going to be one of his annual projects, then it's for his benefit not to be in WWE, but to be in wrestling and to have an affiliation. Now, he had an affiliation. He didn't work for Ring of Honor, but he made a deal with Ring of Honor for the last cruise, you know, last set of cruises that, you know, all the talent came, with the exception of Kenny Omega, and, you know, all the talent came from either Ring of Honor or Impact, because he's friends with Don Callis. But it didn't come, you know, so him, you know, it would make sense for him to have a strong involvement in a company that has talent that he could use that would be marketable on his cruise. You know, that would all make sense in that regard. But again, you know, without a television deal, we're like way ahead of ourselves, you know, in trying to like, well, who's going to come in, who's not. Everyone in the business today, it was something that people were talking about. I can tell you that in WWE, I know of people that, you know, are very, very interested in this. I know several names. That doesn't mean that they'll do anything, but they're very open to the idea. You know, of course, if it gets off the ground and there's something tangible here, which as of today, as of this moment, there really isn't, you know, other than an idea. And it's not like this is the only guy with an idea. I mean, Jeff Jarrett's had this idea for years and has never gotten television, and he's not the only one. Billy Corgan hasn't gotten television, and Billy Corgan's a famous guy, you know, in the entertainment world. And Toby Keith's a famous guy in the entertainment world, and he hasn't been able to get a television deal for you know, a wrestling promotion. So it's not like you just, oh, I'm a rich guy, snap my fingers and I got TV. It's just not that easy. So we're a long way from anything, but it is interesting that obviously certain guys, you know, Cody and the Young Bucks, have to have a certain level of confidence in this thing to allow them to do that Double or Nothing trademark. Because that was Double or Nothing was clearly Cody's line for the second All-In show. And so there you go. I don't know. Is there any other questions?
Well, the obvious question is, what's their plan?
Well, until you have TV, there is no plan.
Well, I mean, if they get TV, what's the plan? I mean, the obvious question is, in order to have a wrestling promotion, you've got to have wrestlers. And right now, All In was a big success. And they used people from Ring of Honor. They used people from New Japan. They had folks from Ring of Honor help them to put the show together.
Yep.
And if they get a television deal, and all of a sudden they're doing something, there's no guarantee they're going to get any help from Ring of Honor. There's no guarantee they're going to get any help from New Japan. Where are the wrestlers going to come from? What's this promotion going to look like?
Well, there'll always be wrestlers. I don't think getting bodies is a problem. There's so many wrestlers out there right now that, you know, would...
Yeah, but I mean, you can look at MLW, and they've got a lot of big names on the indies right now. And what separates this from MLW, besides you've got the Young Bucks, presumably Cody, and maybe Kenny Omega, or whoever?
Well,
I mean, you're building everything around four guys, it sounds like.
Well, there's nothing that separates them. There's nothing that separates them unless they get a better television deal or a streaming deal or something. And it's got to be television. I mean, streaming is great as a secondary thing, and you may be able to make money. And clearly, you know, you follow all sports right now, but especially your boxing and your MMA, and you can see, I mean, like, you know, DAZN especially, and ESPN Plus, they're both paying huge money for rights. I mean, millions of dollars a show. for UFC and millions of dollars for Bellator, for that matter. They're paying big money. I mean, not millions of dollars, not even hundreds of thousands, but a lot of money for Combate Americas. PFL is getting talks with ESPN Plus right now. So and these are groups that have no-name fighters, really. I mean, Eric Perez is in Combate, and there's a couple of guys that would be recognizable in PFL, several, and they're trying to build Kayla. Harrison is like a big marquee star. But ultimately, these are, PFL's doing what, a little over 100,000 viewers a show, which is hardly anything, really. But still, yes, these people everybody wants something. They want content on the streaming services. That's a real big deal right now. And right now, I mean, nobody, does that mean that I've got to believe that these services, if they're going to pay so much for PFL, that they would, or Combate Americas, that a pro wrestling group could get money, but still you need television. So, no, nothing separates them until they get television. If they get television, believe me, they'll have plenty of places to get talent from. Now, the New Japan thing is absolutely a big one because New Japan has its access. And
Ring of Honor. I mean, Ring of Honor is just going to let them use talent for their national television show?
No. Well, no. They're not going to be able to use Ring of Honor talent. I mean, I don't see that as I mean, I can't say for sure, who knows what's going to happen, but I do not see Ring of Honor letting them use talent. And then the whole thing goes, what does New Japan do? Do they go with the group, again, theoretically, that has Cody and the Young Bucks and Hangman Page that are all key guys that they use all the time, and presumably Kenny Omega. But look, and here's the thing: all these guys still want to work New Japan. I shouldn't say all, but pretty much all is a fair thing to say. Some more than others, but they all want to work New Japan. Okay, and they're willing to work New Japan, and New Japan can keep these guys. The whole thing is that now what happens to New Japan's U.S. expansion? That becomes a weird thing. What happens to New Japan's relationship with Ring of Honor? Because, New Japan has always been loyal to those, the groups. Now they do change. Like once it was UWA, later it was CMLL. If the guys, if they can get better talent with this group than with Ring of Honor, what do they do? And we don't know what they'll do. I mean, the key guy, obviously, is Omega. And I don't see, as long as Omega wants to work New Japan, I don't see them not using him. I find that to be... But again, who knows? Who knows how New Japan's going to take this? That's a big part of the story. And I think that, again, with New Japan, it all will depend on... Look, if they have, far better television than Ring of Honor, if they do... that's to New Japan's benefit. If they don't, there's not a story here anyway. I mean, realistically. So, yeah, that's, there's a lot to, it's very much a wait and see. That's why I really didn't want to talk about it. And I really wouldn't even want to too much now because, yeah, I mean, it's trademarks, but these guys aren't under contracts. They can still go somewhere else, all of them. But obviously they are considering this more than just a viable option. I mean, the trademarks tell you there are guys that are considering this more than a viable option. And you watch Being the Elite, and if you watch Being the Elite, pretty much that they're not doing those skits thinking they're going to WWE anytime soon. That doesn't mean they won't. Things can change in a heartbeat. So, like I said, it's a holding pattern. I know people want more information. There is no more information. There's as far as what type of thing they're going to do. I think that it's pretty clear that when the show, they have something called Tuesday Night Dynamite, that their preferred idea is a Tuesday night television show. I think that's kind of tells you something right there. But, you can always change that. I mean, and again, that's going to be up to, you're not going to necessarily go in and go, this is the night. I mean, the TV provider may go, hey, like Fox, I'm sure WWE would rather be on Tuesday on Fox, but Fox told them they're on Friday. Friday's a bad day, but that's the day they want them. And WWE had to redo everything. They got to redo their touring schedule. They got to redo all their plans, everything, the way they do business, because they're getting all kinds of money to be on Friday, not on Tuesday. It's not 2 straight days of tapings anymore. It changes everyone's life, but it's the TV station that dictates to you, what day you want to be on. So, I mean, the Tuesday thing is interesting, but that's hardly like, okay, they're going to be on Tuesday. It's like, obviously, they would probably prefer to be on Tuesday, and so that's the strategy. Perhaps that's the best day, but again, again, who are they? Again, TV deal is TV deal's the key. If they get the TV, if you get a big paying TV deal, and it's hard with nothing, with no starting from scratch. I mean, the thing that they've got essentially selling is the success of All In, which is one show that was very, very successful, and that these guys have a successful YouTube show, and that they are very, very strong in merchandise sales. So those are the pitches that you got. You're not going in totally cold, but you've still, you've produced one pay-per-view show that was, didn't go through the roof as best I could tell, because I'm sure if it went through the roof, I'd know the numbers, but was clearly not a failure either, because just the streaming numbers alone were, very pleasantly successful. For them, but based on the level of what they were going to do. So, and Live Gate and everything like that, merchandise wise, those shows were, super successful. But it's one show. It's not it's very different from running, television shows once a week. So, and yeah, building an office and all that. So there's a lot to this. I'm sure that, when things happen, we'll hear. But right now, I don't know what else. I think that...
well, we can at least talk about Trevor Lee, Sam Shaw, ECH coming in, and now that the trademark news is out, you can presume that...
They're all going to WWE.
You can presume WWE is going to be signing up everybody.
Oh, yeah. They've already tried. Yeah. They're going to try to sign up everybody, of course, especially right now. They don't want that door to open. Look, Vince McMahon's been through WCW. You look at the numbers that WCW was doing in 1993. They were dead. They were doing, they were losing money like crazy. They averaged under 1,000 people per show. There was a period where Smoky Mountain Wrestling was outdrawing them on a monthly basis. I mean, they were dead, and they got Hulk Hogan, the Flair Randy Savage thing, got hot, and all of a sudden Vince was on the ropes. And, obviously he's got major scars from that, because 20 years later at WrestleMania, he was still fighting that fight. That was over 17, whatever it was. We were in San Jose. That fight had been over 14 years ago, right? 2015? 14 years earlier, the fight was over, and it was really over 16 years ago, because WCW had self-destructed by 1999. And he was still fighting that fight. And, it's almost inconceivable, because of the television deals, that this could happen again. But, they don't want that option. They don't want Fox, just as an example. Let's just say this thing's over in 5 years, okay, in 5 years. And then Fox goes in there and, we want wrestling, but maybe we didn't do as well as we expected. And there's this other company, and we can get them cheaper, and maybe they've got some younger guys that are, you know what I mean? You never know what's going on there. There's an alternative, maybe. Maybe they
watch Smackdown and want out. I would.
who's to know what's going to be going on in 5 years with the rapid change in technology? And anyone who tells you they know where it's going, they're full of it, because no one does. The guys who head television networks don't know. Everyone's hedging their bets. You got people overpaying for content because they're paranoid of the future. And does the bubble burst? Does it keep going because there's more competitors? Does Facebook decide that we're going to start bidding for these things? Does all of a sudden that put more money in content to where somebody else can go in there? And, I'm not saying, beat Vince sounds ridiculous, completely ridiculous. But, there's no reason, I don't say there's no reason, but the way things are, look at all the different boxing companies that are getting TV deals. Look at all the different MMA companies that are getting TV deals, and other deals. So it's not like, that wrestling fans aren't going to support a second wrestling company if it's got exposure. And it goes, and it does a good product, and it's a right level of exposure, and it's tough. This is a very tough period to with so much content out there, and WWE producing so much content, so many different shows, just overwhelming people with content. It's real hard to run an opposition thing past the hardcore audience. That's the reality. New Japan's had a good year on access to a degree, but they have a fantastic product, but still, they're worlds away, and there's so many people who won't watch it, or whatever. It's tough. Impact, and of course Impact's got they're on a weak station and everything like that, but their audience is tiny compared to what it once was, which is more them losing Spike than anything else. But but does that mean if you went back on Spike, you would get back to those numbers? Probably not, just because the TV industry is changing so much. So there's so many variables out there right now, and there's no great answer. It's all a matter of being able to make deals. If those deals are in place, I got no doubt that they'll be able to get viable talent. There's so much talent out there that is out there that people don't know about. That's out there that WWE can't make everybody happy. That was the one thing that today was very clear, is that there's a lot of guys in WWE who are scared to leave because, but if there was and believe me, they're not going to leave for a prayer. But if somebody's got, a WCW like thing out there, there's a lot of guys there that would leave. Probably. Guys in when WCW and WWE were going at it, guys were going back and forth all the time. Again, the one advantage WCW had is they were an established thing coming out of the, essentially out of the Crockett territory to TBS, to Crockett's promotion on TBS to WCW. They were never starting from scratch. Starting from scratch is very difficult. Ring of Honor started from scratch. It took a long time. And, for years going nowhere with some great wrestling. Impact started from scratch. And, with the benefit of hindsight, if Impact had played their cards right, Impact could be a very, very successful company in this period now. In this environment, if Impact was still alive and hadn't screwed up and had, been in the hands of people who were living in the future instead of in the past, and had the idea of what was of wrestling in the future rather than wrestling of the past, they would be getting big rights fees right now. They'd be getting something because they'd be, just because there's a lot of people paying for content right now.
All right, Smackdown.
Smackdown. I thought Daniel Bryan's interview was really good. It was interesting. Definitely completely changed his character. Charlotte was just weird. She turns heel. She does a promo saying she won it for she was a total babyface. She's, she's wrestling the Iconics, who are completely unlikable heels. She wrestles one, then she wrestles the other, then they both beat her down. She comes back with a big babyface comeback on both. So she did a heel turn, and now she's a babyface. Daniel Bryan was a babyface last weekend, and now he's back as a heel, but we knew that going in. I mean, that's not a surprise, but it's, he completely revamped his character. What else was on the show?
Shane McMahon, the most notable thing about the entire show, there was zero follow-up to Survivor Series and them losing every single match.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, yeah, almost nothing. And
almost nothing. There was literally nothing. He came out and did a comedy match.
Yeah. So Miz is a baby face, but he's out there acting completely like a heel. He's out there being, slipping on the banana peel, which is a total heel loss, a mid-card heel spot loss. But he's kissing up to the crowd at the same time. And then the announcers are talking about him like he's a heel, like he's kissing up to the boss, which is clearly not what the announcer should say a babyface is doing. So that was, I mean, I think that the idea of getting rid of babyfaces and heels is they're getting there. I don't know if that's a good idea though. But what else was, the food fight sucked. The food fight match, it always does. So here's the thing, okay? Smackdown lost, and Xavier Woods was the one wearing the 6-1 T-shirt, right?
Yes.
In the 6-1 Pilgrim T-shirt. They're dressed as pilgrims, the New Day. So, because it's Thanksgiving, and every Thanksgiving, wrestling has to have both TNA, Impact, and they have to do the Thanksgiving silliness. And I'm sure the first year it's pretty good and the food fight's pretty good, but, they had so many food fights. I tell you what, this is another thing. Did you see how bad Big Show was moving? It's even worse than when he came back.
I saw it last week when he had to get up from his knees and he couldn't.
He could barely get through the ropes when he tagged out. He's moving. I mean, like, I was watching him and I'm going like, you know what? I mean, he probably shouldn't be wrestling anymore. And then, granted, it wasn't the most dangerous bump in the world, but he's still a almost 47-year-old guy who's close to 400 pounds, probably a little under 4 these days because he's thinner, but still close to 400-pound guy who just had hip surgery, who's taken a bump through a table filled with food. I mean, it's just like, isn't that like really kind of like unnecessary? I mean, shouldn't they be protecting him at his age, weight, and injury status?
I mean, quite frankly, of all the things I've seen Big Show do, falling off and going back first through that table is probably the easiest thing that he did. It's probably harder getting up afterwards than it was going through it.
Yeah, but, his whole thing, I mean, where he ended up messing his body up was all the table spots that he did, whatever it was, like when he was doing that ECW thing, the fake ECW and everything, and he was always going through tables. That's how he hurt himself. That's how his body first got so bad that he basically had to leave wrestling he didn't have to, but he had to leave wrestling for a while. It ended up being a lot longer than he had to. But, I mean, he beat his body up so bad, and it was through going through tables. He's a big guy. I know it wasn't like the most dangerous bump, but it's like a guy like him at this stage of his life probably shouldn't be doing that, especially, think about this. It's like, if this was WrestleMania, it's one thing. If this was SummerSlam, it's one thing. This was a freaking comedy Thanksgiving food fight match. I mean, the other guys can go through the tables. And why, and again, why do you need to go through tables in a freaking food fight match anyway? You can just throw food at each other. That's the whole match anyway. I mean, if they were throwing pies at his face and throwing gravy on him and cranberry sauce on him, that's a hell of a lot safer.
All right, the ratings for these shows.
Raw did better than it had any right to do, considering that Chiefs football game, Chiefs and Rams game, which was an incredible game, and It was the highest rated game of the season, and now Monday Night Football is just way up from last year, so all of a sudden, all the people who were talking about how Colin Kaepernick is in the kneeling is killing the league and people won't watch anymore and all that, and there's a big comeback this year in football ratings. So, but yeah, it was over 16.6 million viewers, I think, and Raw still stayed pretty much even. They were actually up slightly from the week before, very slightly. But, they didn't get as big a bump off Survivor Series as I'm sure they would have, without the football game, they'd have gotten a bigger bump. And they actually finished higher as far as among the ranks of the shows because the news shows got hurt by the football even more than they did. So, yeah, that now Smackdown was down considerably from last week, more than I expected it to be because they weren't going against tough competition, and they were still coming off of a pay-per-view, and they were coming off that AJ Daniel Bryan title change, and who knows, maybe all those losses. So yeah, on the Smackdown thing, so he's wearing the 6-1 shirt. Okay, first of all, shouldn't it be 1-6? Second of all, why is the New Day trying to get the fans to chant 6-1? Isn't that ridiculous? I mean, I'm watching them going isn't that you know what I mean? It's you're trying to chant that, it's you're trying to chant that our brand sucks and we're going to lead you in a chant.
No, they're trying to chant that their brand doesn't suck as much as everyone thinks it sucks because the storyline is they lost every match. So New Day is trying to start a campaign to say, in fact, we did win one match. You just pretended the match didn't happen.
Yeah, but we still suck.
They do still suck. But they suck less having won 1 than having won 0.
Yeah, most teams that go 1-6 are not considered successful. So.
Yeah, well, teams that go 0 and 5 are definitely not successful.
They're both not successful.
Well, yeah. One's a little better.
Yeah, it is, I guess. I thought it was weird that the New Day's the ones going out there, bragging about winning, considering they got eliminated. I mean, if anyone's going to brag about winning, it should have been the Usos.
No, we also had Miz and Shane McMahon bragging about winning in a match they lost.
Yeah, they both got power slammed in. Yeah. I thought the one thing with Daniel Bryan that I thought was very interesting is one of the things he's got going for him, a big thing is the Yes Chant and the merchandise from the Yes Chant. And essentially he's very few guys throw away their are out there willingly throwing away their merchandise money. And he, Jericho did that when he turned once because it was just I don't want anyone buying my merchandise. Later, of course, he was a heel where he did have merchandise. But at one point, it was I don't want people buying my merchandise. I don't want any merchandise. I want to be a heel. And with Bryan, I haven't heard him saying I don't want any merchandise, but he said, the Yes movement is dead. So all that Yes stuff, which is the stuff that people were buying of his, he's basically saying it's dead. So that's a very interesting, throwing that thing out because that was really his trademark. But as long as he had that as a heel, he really would only be a fake heel anyway. He'd be a heel where, okay, I'm going to get everyone to chant no, 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 yes, 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 and all that. But it's still everyone's smiling while they do it. He's trying to get people to not smile at his stuff and be a very dark character. He was, I'm sure he got this. The guy really was in those hyperbaric chambers, on a regular basis for long periods of time. I mean, that story's legit. I don't know what he was thinking when he was in there, but I'm going to guess that there's probably some semblance when you're sitting in there of thinking, I'm sure he was thinking of a million different things of what he would do when he would come back. And, so I'm sure that he was, doing all that. And, it was an interesting promo. I mean, obviously the whole thing is for the program with AJ Styles. Yeah, they could do a face versus face program, but I think that he felt that it would probably be better not to. And between him and AJ Styles, he wanted to be the heel and figured that AJ would have a harder time turning than him, and I don't know that either one would be necessarily easier or harder, but he wanted it. I don't know that AJ'd be giving up a lot of merchandise money right now to do a turn. That would probably not be. And AJ's 41 years old, and I don't think that AJ's. I think he's more money oriented, especially now at this point because he's hurting, and I don't know how many more years he can go at this clip, or that he would want to go. I mean, so doing something where he would cut down on his income greatly probably isn't something that he would be aspiring to do right about now. Whereas with Bryan, it's more. I think he's more of the challenge, and he's just got ideas on what he wants to do, and he's going to be happy if he can do his ideas.
All right, a bunch of names here. Lars Sullivan.
Yeah, so okay. There's no destination for Lars Sullivan. He's going to feud with Braun Strowman, or he may, or whatever. But very much he's not. The plan is, and of course, God only knows, but the plan is that he's getting the big time push, just like Braun Strowman did. And I'll bet you they do almost the exact same thing because they're very patterned right now, which isn't a good thing. But yeah, I bet you they do the exact same thing that they did with Braun Strowman years ago that they'll do with Lars and try to, But yeah, I mean, he's Vince's kind of guy. He's very impressive up close. He's not, he's still impressive on television, but he's not as impressive on television as he is up close. And sometimes when you're up close and you're not watching the television, you see things a different way than the television viewer does very often. Lars has a cool look and all that, and he moves pretty well. A lot depends on the promo stuff. I feel that his character should have a mouthpiece, even though he can talk. I think he shouldn't talk. I think it should be more mystery to him. I don't know who that would necessarily be. It certainly shouldn't be Leo Rush. He needs Gary Hart or J.J. Dillon. I just don't know where Gary Hart and J.J. Dillon are these days. Well, I do know where J.J. is, but I wouldn't. It's too late. I don't think that he's the guy right now, but they need a guy like that to me for him, so he doesn't talk, and he's out there as going after whoever the top babyface is going to be, Braun Strowman or AJ or whatever. Don't know which brand he's going to be on, but I don't know. I don't know which one. Did they do vignettes for Lars on SmackDown? They did on Raw. And they didn't on. I don't remember if they did.
I don't remember SmackDown.
I fast forwarded through a lot of SmackDown, but I did see it on Raw. So maybe it is Raw.
Ziggler.
Ziggler's got a foot injury, and he may be back within a week. He's going to be evaluated again on Saturday. He's going to, as far as I believe, he's going to Cincinnati for Starrcade. He will be evaluated there. So there's a chance he may even be on that show if he's okay. It's not a serious injury. They thought it was a break, which would have been a somewhat serious injury, but he did not have a broken foot. So whatever it is, isn't that bad, and they expect him back pretty soon.
Becky Lynch.
Yeah. Off of everything. No return. Well, it's concussion. Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss are still waiting.
John Cena's back for a bunch of dates. I think at least one of them is TV.
Probably a couple. But yeah, only one. The first. Yeah, he's on the second. It would be the second TV of the new year. He's on that one out of Orlando. I'm going to guess that he'll probably be on the TVs the week before, one of the TVs the week before. He's doing mostly SmackDown shows, but he's doing a Raw TV. He's the free agent John Cena, so he can do whatever they need him to do, I guess, is the idea. But he's coming back after Christmas. He's coming back after Christmas for at least a little while.
Got Starrcade coming up on Friday. They're going to do a 1-hour show. Saturday. 1-hour show on the network on Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to pack into 1 hour, but is there a reason they can't put the entire thing on the network Sunday?
I have no idea why they can't put the entire thing on the network. I don't have an explanation. And the fact that they're going to do a Miz TV with Nakamura and Rey Mysterio cuts, which is for the network, cuts greatly into the wrestling time, with all those matches that they got. So, it's going to be, I don't know how they're going to do it, but it would make sense. It would feel with all the matches they got booked. They got a lot of interesting matches on that show. You would think that you could go. Yeah, it should be a longer time frame. This is an experiment. When they announced next year's Survivor Series, and it's Thanksgiving weekend next year instead of the weekend before, so it's kind of like. I suppose they could still do a Starrcade, but the traditional Starrcade Thanksgiving weekend is out next year, inherently, because they're going to be doing 4 TVs out of Chicago the whole weekend.
Pretty sure they can use another date. So, New Japan announcing Callis and Kevin Kelly
for the Tokyo Dome. Essentially, what's going to happen is they're going to be using they're not going to be doing voiceovers in their studio anymore. They're going to be getting the New Japan World feed, and they will edit the New Japan World feed into 1-hour television shows with the New Japan announcer. So Kevin Kelly will be the lead announcer, the permanent lead announcer. Don Callis will do the big shows, and Rocky Romero and whomever else they put in those positions will be doing the other shows. So hopefully they don't have the bad ideas that they had in recent weeks, because that would be pretty embarrassing on Access to have some of the announcing that they had that week that Kevin Kelly was gone. That was freaking atrocious.
I mean, if they've got all of the English commentary on New Japan World, there is no reason to have to do a second set of voiceovers for Access. Just use English language stuff.
No, you're right. There's no reason to have to do that, other than you want a different slant on everything. But is it that important? I don't know. And the impression I got is that this came from the New Japan side. So that's what they want.
We have this coming weekend the Tom Lawler fight, co-main event, Liddell and Ortiz on this show. And the show will be available on pay-per-view, Fight, Fight? I believe Fight's carrying it.
Regular pay-per-view.
Fight.tv.
Yeah, Fight TV app and all that. Yeah. I guess I'm going to watch. I don't think it's going to do very well. Tito Ortiz, they're out there throwing numbers like 200,000 to 400,000. I don't see that. I don't think that. Look, Chuck Liddell hasn't won a fight since 2007. That's.
I've heard, aside from Tom on the show and people from our website, because Tom is a part of our website. Outside of that, I've heard nobody talk about Liddell versus Ortiz. Nobody. Yeah, I don't know one person that I know, and I know a lot of people that watch MMA. I don't know one person that said one word about this show.
No, I've heard a decent amount, actually, but almost all in a quasi-negative manner. It's
like people that are going to buy this show.
I don't know that there are people. I don't know a lot of people who are going to buy the show. I know people who are talking about the show. Yeah, like I said, I don't expect a lot of people to buy the show. I expect this to be a big disappointment for all involved. Oscar De La Hoya is out there talking like they're going to make more money for this fight than they've ever made in their careers. I don't think that's going to happen. They're both getting 30% of the combination of the live gate and pay-per-view revenue. So if they do 200,000 buys, let's see. They do 200,000 buys. Well, right now the price is at 40. Let's say it's a 50 split, so that's $20, 200,000, $4 million. So, if they do 200,000 buys at $4 million, that's $1.2 million. That's actually a hell of a payday there. That would be the biggest. let me think about this. No, because Tito made more than that for the Liddell fight 10, 11, 12 years ago. But still, and it's also 30% of the live gate too. But still, if they do 200,000 buys, yeah, they're both going to make $1 million too. That's not so bad. If they do 100,000 buys, they'll both make 600, which is something. But I'm sure they'll be disappointed as hell. They may do 50. I don't know. I don't expect 100. I expect under 100.
UFC building its own arena.
Yeah, well, okay. So on their campus, they're expanding, and they're building a new campus in Shanghai, China. They're doing, I think it's in Shanghai, China, but it's in China for sure. A big new performance center and everything like that. Performance Institute, they call it. Them and WWE, that's the new thing. They're going to open up these things all over the world with the idea of training fighters. They so badly want some Chinese superstar. Well, both companies do. So bad right now. Thinking it's the key to whatever. I mean, the NBA had Yao Ming, and it was incredibly huge for them to have him. And they're just trying to find, both guys are trying to find somebody, there who can do something, and be a real star. And but as far as so UFC is going to build an arena on their campus, and they would be it'd be like between 500 and 1,500 seats is the idea. And that they would do all the Ultimate Fighter shootings, like the Ultimate Fighter shows, the fights will be done at the arena with spectators. So it wouldn't be, like a secret thing anymore. They would have crowds there, and the Tuesday night contenders, would also be there. They're getting rid of the old that UFC gym, and I'm sure that they'll use the Performance Center for the future of Ultimate Fighter. They'll be training at their Performance Institute rather than that UFC gym, which they should. And yeah, so that's part of their expansion plans.
Rachel Ostrovich.
So her husband was taken in yesterday and charged with second-degree attempted murder. She got a restraining order against him. He cannot see her or his daughter. Cannot come within 100 feet of them until May. And Alan Bearden is his name, and he's an MMA fighter, fights in Hawaii. He's fought on Pancrase in Japan. He's fought, not UFC level, but he's fought on significant shows. I think he's got a 7-2 record. But anyway, he's claiming she started the fight. Clearly she got beat up pretty bad. She was hospitalized, broken orbital bone. She described in detail in her filing for a protection order that she was beaten up pretty bad, had to escape out of the balcony. So it's, a domestic violence thing. That's what it sounded like from the original reports. So that's the deal. And it got a lot of press. Part of it, it's because she's very photogenic, but it's a real bad deal.
Speaking of bad deals, we got to wrap up with this: the situation in Mexico, which has actually gotten press all over the world in mainstream media, where I guess angel or devil happens to be his gimmick.
Angel
threw a cinder block at this dude's head. And I'm not talking a small cinder block. I'm talking like a big-ass giant cinder block.
She threw a brick at this Cuervo, which was the Cuervo.
When you say brick, hold on a second. When you say brick, people are thinking like a brick, like a small brick. Okay? This thing, he needed 2 hands to lift it over his head. It's like the size of, practically like a small cooler. It's absolutely gigantic. And he threw it and just waffled the dude in the back of the head. And
he nearly killed him, and he could have killed him. He could have killed him easily. The guy had a subdural hematoma.
Cuervo was his name.
He had a blood clot, from the Puerto Rican Cuervo, because there's a Cuervo that worked for AAA. It's not him. He had a fractured skull. He had a blood clot in his bleeding in the brain, blood clot near the brain. Horrible situation.
Epidural hematoma, skull fracture, drain the clot, intensive care, I believe, still.
He was intensive care as of a couple hours ago, yeah.
Yep.
They're doing benefit shows. He's going to be in the hospital for a while, and then he's going to need rehab. He may never wrestle again. Horrible. There is no justification for this whatsoever. He was mad because he was hit with chair shots. He was hit with chair shots, but no worse than in any other hardcore match. And he didn't sell them anyway, really. I think that, look, he went backstage and came out with a brick, and then he threw it. That tells me when he went backstage to come out with a freaking brick that he was out there thinking, I'm throwing this brick at this guy, or I'm going to hit him with it or something. Maybe he thought he would hit him with it, but he fired it from the ring down. Cuervo was on the floor. It was horrible. There's like I said, there is no way that you can justify his actions. He should be, out of the business. He should be out of the business. I don't think that he should ever be back. This is too big of a, this was, you could call this attempted murder. You really could. It was just horrible.
All right, everybody, on that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Very thankful for all of you. Appreciate everything throughout the year. And we got a lot of stuff coming up. No shows the rest of Thanksgiving, but we'll be back on Friday with a bunch of stuff, and, of course, this weekend as well, so check all of that out. And that is it. We will talk to you again after a while.